In 2004, a 24-year-old college dropout built an online store to sell snowboards out of Ottawa, Canada. That store became the foundation of a $100 billion commerce empire, powering 1.75 million businesses worldwide. He had no business degree, no venture capital, no retail experience whatsoever. Just a German-born programmer who could not find software good enough to sell his product online. On June 26, 2015, in a glass-walled boardroom on Bay Street in Toronto, Tobi Lütke watched Shopify's stock open at $28 per share. By end of day, it had surged 51%. The analysts who called it overpriced at IPO missed what Tobi had seen all along. Stay with me, because this video breaks down the exact strategic decisions that turned a snowboard hobby shop into one of the most important technology companies ever built, and the one contrarian insight that changed everything. I am Tycoon Decoded. Today, we examine how Shopify's founder, Tobi Lütke, built a $100 billion commerce empire starting from a failed snowboard retail business in a frozen Canadian city, using decisions most business schools still have not figured out how to teach. Tobi Lütke was born in 1980 in Koblenz, Germany. He was not a typical entrepreneur. He was a programmer first and a businessman second. He dropped out of school at 16 to pursue an apprenticeship in computer programming at Siemens. That kind of vocational training is common in Germany, and it shaped the way Tobi thought about problems. He was not interested in selling a story. He was interested in building systems that actually worked. In 1999, he moved to Canada partly for a relationship, partly for opportunity. He settled in Ottawa, which is not exactly known as a technology hub. Silicon Valley? This was not. But Tobi had a hobby that was about to become a business problem he could not ignore. He loved snowboarding. In 2004, he and his partner Scott Lake decided to open an online snowboard shop called Snow Devil. The problem was immediate. The existing e-commerce software available at the time was genuinely terrible. Platforms like Miva Merchant and Os Commerce were clunky, confusing, and impossible to customize without deep technical knowledge. Tobi had deep technical knowledge, but even he found them frustrating. So he did what programmers do. He built his own solution. He spent several months writing custom e-commerce software using Ruby on Rails, a relatively new web development framework at the time. What he built was cleaner, faster, and more intuitive than anything on the market. Snow Devil launched in 2004, and it worked. The store ran smoothly. But something interesting happened almost immediately. Other entrepreneurs started asking Tobi where they could get the same software he used. That question would change the entire direction of his life. The market opportunity was hiding in plain sight. In 2004, e-commerce was growing but still deeply fragmented. Amazon was a retailer. eBay was an auction marketplace. But there was no clean, reliable platform that let independent merchants build their own branded online stores without hiring a team of developers. The gap was enormous. You had millions of small business owners who wanted to sell online but could not figure out how. Tobi spotted this not through market research but through lived experience. That is a pattern you will see in many empire builders. The best product ideas often come from the founder being the customer. He was not building Shopify to get rich. He was building a tool he personally needed. And that authenticity of purpose would drive every major decision he made in the years ahead. Snow Devil as a snowboard shop was always a side project. The real product was the infrastructure underneath it. By 2006, Tobi and Scott Lake, along with a third co-founder, Daniel Wynand, made the pivot official. They shut down the snowboard shop and launched Shopify as a standalone software platform. The name was simple. Shop, as in retail. Ify, as in to make something possible. The pitch was equally simple. Anyone could build a professional online store without touching a single line of code. In the early days, Shopify operated out of a coffee shop in Ottawa called Bridgehead. The team was tiny. Funding was minimal. They bootstrapped the initial development and then raised a small seed round of roughly 250,000 Canadian dollars from local angels. This was not a Silicon Valley-style blitz-scaling operation. It was methodical, deliberate. Tobi was focused on one thing: making the product work really well for a small number of merchants. He believed that if you solved the problem correctly for 10 customers, you would eventually solve it for 10 million. That philosophy of depth before breadth is not taught in most business schools, but it is exactly how Shopify survived a brutal, competitive environment in its early years. The first version of Shopify launched publicly in 2006. It offered merchants a simple dashboard, customizable storefront templates, and secure payment processing. The pricing was subscription-based, starting at $24 per month. That recurring revenue model was a critical early decision. It gave Shopify predictable cash flow and aligned the company's success directly with merchant success. If merchants failed, they canceled their subscriptions, so Shopify had every incentive to make them succeed. By 2008, Shopify had around 2,500 merchants on the platform. Small by any standard, but the retention numbers were strong. Merchants who tried Shopify tended to stay. That was the signal Tobi needed. The product had genuine product-market fit. In 2009, Shopify made its first major platform bet. It launched the Shopify App Store. This was the move that most analysts underestimate when they look back at the company's history. The App Store allowed third-party developers to build extensions and tools on top of Shopify's infrastructure. Suddenly, Shopify was not just a software product. It was becoming a platform, an ecosystem. Developers could monetize their skills. Merchants got access to an ever-expanding library of tools. And Shopify sat in the middle, collecting subscription revenue and a percentage of app sales. This is the same flywheel logic that made Apple's App Store one of the most profitable businesses in human history. Tobi saw it in 2009. Most of his competitors were still thinking about e-commerce software as a single product. Shopify was already thinking about it as an operating system for commerce. The inflection point came in 2010. Shopify raised a Series A round of $7 million from a group that included Bessemer Venture Partners and First Mark Capital. This was the first institutional money, and it unlocked a new phase of growth. The team expanded. Marketing budget appeared. But more importantly, Shopify used the funding to double down on developer tools. They made the platform deeply customizable for technical users while keeping it simple for non-technical merchants. That dual-track strategy was rare. Most software companies pick one audience. Shopify decided to serve both. By 2012, Shopify had 35,000 merchants and was processing over $700 million in annual gross merchandise volume. Growth was accelerating, but so was competition. Big players like Magento, BigCommerce, and eventually Wix and Squarespace were all chasing the same market. Here is where Tobi made a decision that separated Shopify from every competitor. He refused to compete on price. He refused to add features just because competitors had them. Instead, he obsessively focused on one metric: merchant success rate. If merchants on Shopify were growing, Shopify would grow. He hired a chief operating officer, Harley Finkelstein, who would become one of the most important people in the company's story. Harley was a lawyer turned entrepreneur who deeply understood small business. He became Shopify's public face and its strongest advocate for the merchant-first philosophy. Together, Tobi and Harley built a culture that felt different from typical Silicon Valley companies. There was less ego, less theater, more engineering discipline and genuine obsession with solving real problems. In 2013, Shopify introduced Shopify Payments, its own built-in payment processing system powered by Stripe. This was a massive strategic move. Previously, merchants had to set up third-party payment processors. Now Shopify handled everything natively, and every transaction processed through Shopify payments generated revenue for Shopify directly. This was the beginning of Shopify's financial services layer. Most people think of Shopify as a website builder, but if you look at where the money actually comes from, it is increasingly from financial services, payments, loans, capital advances, and banking products. Tobi understood this years before most investors did. By 2014, Shopify had over 100,000 merchants and was generating $105 million in annual revenue. The growth trajectory was undeniable. The team made the decision to pursue an IPO. On June 26, 2015, Shopify went public on the New York Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange simultaneously. The IPO raised $131 million at a valuation of approximately $1.27 billion. Critics called it overpriced. Some analysts argued there was no moat. They were spectacularly wrong. Within 18 months, the stock had tripled. The IPO gave Shopify the capital and the credibility to make much larger bets. The next major bet was physical retail. In 2015, Shopify launched its point-of-sale hardware system. Now merchants could use Shopify to run both their online store and their physical store from a single dashboard. This was a direct attack on legacy point-of-sale systems like Square and traditional retail software. But it also expanded Shopify's total addressable market dramatically. Commerce was not just online. Shopify wanted to own all of it. In 2016, the company launched Shopify Capital, offering cash advances to merchants based on their sales history. This was not a loan in the traditional sense. Merchants received capital up front and repaid it as a percentage of future sales. For small business owners who could not qualify for bank loans, this was transformative. And for Shopify, it was a new high-margin revenue stream with built-in risk management, since repayment was tied directly to the merchant's performance on the platform. By 2018, Shopify had crossed 600,000 merchants. Annual revenue was approaching $1 billion. The company was hiring aggressively and expanding internationally. But the most important strategic move of this period was one that almost nobody talked about publicly. Shopify was quietly building what it called the Shopify Fulfillment Network. The idea was to offer merchants access to a distributed warehouse and logistics network, similar to what Amazon offers its third-party sellers through Fulfillment by Amazon. This was audacious. Running warehouses is hard. Logistics is notoriously complex. But Tobi understood that if merchants had to choose between Shopify and Amazon, because Amazon had better shipping, Shopify would eventually lose. The fulfillment network was a defensive play as much as an offensive one. In 2019, Shopify announced a $1 billion investment into the Shopify Fulfillment Network. This was the largest single capital commitment in the company's history. Wall Street was skeptical, margins would be pressured. But Tobi had played a longer game before. He was not optimizing for this quarter's earnings. He was building infrastructure for a decade. Then the pandemic arrived. In March 2020, the entire global retail economy went online almost overnight. Millions of businesses that had never considered e-commerce suddenly had no choice. They needed an online store. They needed it fast, and Shopify was ready. The company's merchant count exploded. New merchants signing up in the first 2 months of the pandemic represented a gain that would have taken Shopify roughly a decade to accumulate at its pre-pandemic growth rate. Revenue in 2020 reached $2.93 billion, nearly doubling from the prior year. The stock went from around $400 in January 2020 to over $1,500 by November 2021. The market cap crossed $100 billion. A college dropout who started selling snowboards in Ottawa was now running a company worth more than Goldman Sachs. You have to sit with that for a moment, because it is genuinely one of the most remarkable business trajectories of the 21st century. In 2021, Shopify made a bold partnership move. The company invested in global e-online and struck a deal to power international commerce for merchants, making it dramatically easier to sell across borders with localized currencies, taxes, and checkout experiences. International expansion had always been a challenge for small merchants. Shopify was systematically removing every friction point. By 2022 and 2023, the macro environment shifted. Rising interest rates hit growth stocks hard. Shopify's stock fell from its peak. The company made the difficult decision to lay off roughly 20% of its workforce in July 2022. Then in May 2023, Tobi made another surprising call. Shopify sold its logistics business, including the fulfillment network, to Flexport in exchange for a significant equity stake. The pivot shocked many observers. Had Shopify retreated from its logistics ambitions? Not exactly. Tobi explained that running physical warehouses was not core to Shopify's mission. Owning equity in the best logistics company in the world while focusing Shopify's own energy on software and financial services was a smarter allocation of capital and attention. It was a rare example of a founder publicly admitting a strategic overreach and correcting course without ego. As of 2024, Shopify serves over 1.75 million merchants in more than 175 countries. The platform processes hundreds of billions of dollars in gross merchandise volume annually. Shopify Payments, Shopify Capital, Shopify Balance, and Shopify Markets together represent a growing financial services business that most competitors cannot replicate easily. Here is what most people miss about Shopify. Everyone frames it as an e-commerce platform company. But that is the wrong mental model. Shopify is actually a financial infrastructure company that uses e-commerce software as its distribution channel. Think about it. The subscription fees from merchant plans are important, but the highest margin, fastest-growing revenue streams are all financial. Payment processing fees, merchant cash advances, currency conversion, fraud protection services. Tobi built a bank for entrepreneurs. He just never called it that. Because if he had called it a bank, he would have faced regulatory scrutiny, consumer skepticism, and competition from actual banks from day one. By wrapping the financial services inside a software product that merchants loved, he built the distribution network first and the financial engine second. That sequencing was not accidental. It was one of the most sophisticated go-to-market strategies in modern business history. And here is the contrarian point that almost nobody acknowledges. Shopify's biggest competitor is not BigCommerce or WooCommerce or Wix. It is Amazon, and Shopify has been winning that war by refusing to fight it directly. Amazon competes with its own sellers. Shopify arms the sellers. That positioning, as the anti-Amazon, has been central to Shopify's pitch to merchants since at least 2015. Tobi understood that you do not beat a monopolist by copying them. You beat them by becoming indispensable to the people they are exploiting. So what can you take from this as an entrepreneur or business professional? First, build the tool you personally needed. The most durable products come from founders who genuinely experienced the problem. Tobi was not doing market research. He was frustrated. That frustration became a billion-dollar company. Second, platform beats product every time. The App Store launch in 2009 was the moment Shopify stopped being a software tool and became an ecosystem. If you are building a product, ask yourself how you can make it a platform for others to build on. Third, sequence your business model carefully. Shopify built merchant trust with software before monetizing through financial services. If they had launched a lending product on day one, nobody would have trusted them. Earn trust first. Monetize second. Next time on Tycoon Decoded, how Duolingo went from a free language app with no business model to a $7 billion public company in under 10 years. Subscribe so you do not miss it.